What's going on, you guys? So, when we compare boxing to kickboxing to Muay Thai to MMA, each fan has a pick on which they feel is the best combat sport. Which art will beat which art. A lot of boxing fans feel boxing is the best. A lot of Muay Thai kickboxing guys feel kickboxing Muay Thai is the best. A lot of MMA guys feel MMA trumps all. But in reality, it really comes down to the fighter. It really just comes down to whatever, the fighter. Now, is kickboxing a real sport? Just a question I heard. It's something that I've been hearing, and it's been kind of stuck in my mind. I'm a kickboxing guy. So that kind of, I sat there and thought about that. Is kickboxing a real sport? I heard it from Chael Sonnen. On his podcast. He has a real good show on YouTube. You're a good podcast. God knows his shit. And he said, kickboxing, is it a real sport? These guys don't move their heads. And he used the Francis Ngannou Rosenstrike fight as an example. And he had a really valid point. Rosenstrike is 27-3 as a kickboxer. So this is what he do. He stand up on feet. Francis Ngannou is a pretty relatively newer green MMA fighter. He only has 6 years of training, 6 years of fighting. And that's what he does as well, is stand up. He stand and bang. He don't grapple. He's not going to shoot for no takedowns. He's not going to hold you against the cage. None of that. He's going to throw them hands. That's what he does. He went up in there and knocked out the kickboxing guy in like 10 seconds. Mind you, it's not like it was a big size differential, anything like that. These guys both 6'4". It's not like it was, he went up in there and blitzed him and got him up out of there. Had him hurt, out, sent against the fence, sent down on his butt, just out. And I thought about it. He said that kickboxing isn't a real sport because these guys don't move their fucking heads. And you got a good point there. He made a good point. Now, some kickboxers, there's kickboxers out there that do move their heads. You're not trained to move your head in kickboxing. I train kickboxing. They don't train you necessarily to move your head. Why? Because of the obvious reasons. You lean your head to the left, you might catch a right kick to the head. You lean your head to the right, you might catch a left kick to the head or a knee. So you don't want to get caught sleeping, leaning. Killed kickboxing is Bob Sapp. Bob the Beast Sapp. Bob Sapp was a guy who was a football player, right? Bob Sapp, he's a monster of a man. He came in kickboxing with little to no experience, beat these champions, beat these guys that's been training their whole life. He won 2K1 tournaments. They say they paid him off to start throwing fights, the third one. And as we know Bob Sapp, if you know Bob Sapp, he's been throwing fights for years. Actually, he just won a fight recently. His first fight, like 8.5 years, something like that. He just won his first fight and he didn't throw it. But Bob Sapp's been running through guys at one point in kickboxing for years. A football player, a guy with no experience, just a big, strong man. He learned how to kick, he learned how to punch, but he wasn't necessarily, he wasn't skillful, he wasn't fast, he was super strong and he's tough. And he went up in there and had a lot of success in K1. Will that happen in boxing? I don't think so. But there's kickboxers out there that we've seen throughout the years. Guys like Smart Pakaroon, from back in the day, he's the Michael Jordan of Muay Thai. He moved his head a lot, and he was also a successful boxer. Then we seen guys like Sanchai, one of the greatest Muay Thai fighters of all time as well. He does a lot of head movement, a lot of movement. We have Cedric Doumbé, one of the best kickboxers today, welterweight. He moves his head a lot. We had Israel Adesanya as a kickboxer. He moved his head a lot. He also had a lot. All these guys I just named had a lot of success. Danny Bill from the Golden Era, one of the greatest non-Thai Muay Thai fighters of all time. He moved his head. He had good defense. He had a lot of success. So that whole notion that kickboxing is a real sport, it's a real sport. It's just that not a lot of guys are trained to move their heads. But I think that will change. As men evolve, sports evolve, everything evolves. So I think you're going to see a lot more kickboxing guys taking that risk and moving their heads. That's just what it is. I mean, not to say, kickboxing isn't a real sport. It is a real sport. It's been around for a long time. But usually when the kickboxer makes a transition to MMA or even boxing, it just doesn't end well for him. And we have some boxers today that was former kickboxers. Dillian White, Chris Algieri. I think the Klitschko's used to kickbox, but they had a lot of success in boxing. So it really just depends ultimately on the individual. I wouldn't come out and say kickboxing isn't a real sport, because it is. But as far as those guys making a transition to boxing or to MMA, well, of course, with MMA, there's a lot of things you got to learn, the grappling defense and things of that nature. So it changes your whole stance completely, because you got to be prepared for the takedown, especially if that's who you're fighting against, a grappler guy. You got to be prepared for a takedown. So your stance changes automatically in MMA. But in boxing, a lot of these guys make the transition to boxing, they don't end up doing too well. And they always say, boxing, you only have 2 weapons. And Muay Thai and kickboxing, you have 6 or 8, whatever it is, But with those 2 weapons, these guys can make it happen. They limit to only 2 weapons. That's all they got, is they 2 weapons, not 6 or 8. And they still make it happen. And I used to be one of the guys back in the day say, Muay Thai gotta beat a boxer because he has more weapons. But if you think about it, a boxer only has 2 weapons. And they learned for years and years to make only those 2 weapons work. You know what I'm saying? I think your hands is probably one of the most important things. For all these guys who are upcoming fighters, young fighters, guys who, may want to think about getting into fighting, make sure you learn how to box. Make sure you get your hands ready first, because your hands is going to be what's there to protect you at the end of the day anyway, not your legs. You know what I'm saying? You can check the leg kicks, things of that nature, but you're going to have your hands. Your hands, to me, I wish I thought I had this mindset when I was younger. I've always been a fight fan, karate guy, all that, but boxing, to me, right now, is the most important thing I think a fighter should learn. I think that's the first thing an aspiring fighter should learn. But as far as kickboxing not being a real sport, I think that's kind of throwing stones at a glass house a little bit. I think that's kind of taking a shot at the kickboxing guys out there who put in the work. Kickboxing is a lot of work. It's very dangerous, and they don't get paid as much. But to say it's not a real sport just because they don't have the head movement, that's just some kickboxers, man. Over there in Holland, those guys, I don't really see too many of those guys moving their head too much. That's just what it is, man. I love kickboxing. I love boxing. I love MMA. I'm a fight fan. This is Bushido boxing. I love it all. You know what I'm saying? I learned how to love it all over the years. Actually, I've always loved all combat sports. I've never been one of these guys where, I hate boxing because MMA is better, or I hate MMA because boxing is better. I hate kickboxing because nobody sees it. No, I love it all. I was the dude watching karate movies as a kid growing up, acting like I was Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan and shit, Roy Jones Jr. and shit. So I was that guy. So I love it all. Like, subscribe, holla at your boy. Peace out.